Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Impossible. I am your co host, Austin, and today we're going to have a little heart to heart. So, for those of you who follow and are with us here on Team Impossible, you know that of recent we've had to increase the number of scans and blood work to give us an insight into why I had some lymph nodes that reappeared again in their rock hard state. And so I had a PET scan done at the end of August, and it had shown some pretty irrefutable activity. And then we got to here just a couple weeks ago. I had a biopsy done, and I've had these couple of weeks to sort of gather my thoughts, and got the results pretty quick. It is a return officially of my Hodgkin's lymphoma, so it is another relapse, and being relapse number 2, we're going to have to step up our game in terms of treatment. So this time last year, I had found out that I'd relapsed for the first time, and we had looked into what is called an autologous stem cell transplant. Sorry, I had brain fart for a second. And this type of treatment is a fairly intense regimen. And so we as in Matt and myself, went on this sort of witch hunt, scavenger hunt, finding a needle in the haystack in terms of alternative methods of treatment. And we came to very few options, but one of them was the CAR T cell, the CD30 CAR T cell clinical trial there in Houston. And so that's obviously what we had chosen and had attempted in doing instead of the autologous stem cell transplant. So coming into this, it being the second relapse, we need to take a much more intense, pragmatic, ultimately devastating to a degree form of treatment. So how the next few months are going to go from a treatment perspective is there are a plethora of options that I have for the period that is before the transplant. And this period of time is called consolidation. I go through consolidation treatment or consolidation therapy. And the purpose of this time period here is that I am going to go through some treatment that will again knock out, hopefully almost completely all, if that makes any sense, almost all of the cancer cells. So we're looking for a 99% plus kill rate. And so for the different options, you have different immunotherapeutic drugs and different chemotherapeutic drugs that you can take for this period. Not a plethora of choices, but there are just a few kind of combinations that people have done. And the one that makes the most sense and that has incredible statistics to support its and trials to support its efficacy is what's called Pembro plus GVD. So Pembro is pembrolizumab. I have taken it before, That's what I had done in Cleveland before I went down to Houston for that treatment. It is an immunotherapeutic drug, a PD-1 inhibitor, and so I'll have that plus GVD. GVD is gemcitabine, vinorelbine, and liposomal doxorubicin. And I believe it is the gemcitabine and the liposomal doxorubicin. Those two are, I believe it's those two. Two of those three chemotherapeutic drugs are very much in use for types of cancers such as mine, Hodgkin's lymphoma. I don't know about non-Hodgkin's, but at least with Hodgkin's, a lot of the subtypes, and in my case, the nodular sclerosis classical Hodgkin's lymphoma, they're used fairly often in treatments and have been used in the past for quite some time. And then the third one, it's either the vinorelbine or the doxorubicin. I'm pretty sure it's the vinorelbine. Is just something that is just a drug that when combined with those other two, the efficacy goes up. That's how they've put this together, and they put that through obviously clinical trials, and the numbers that come from that are very impressive. So the trial that was done through Memorial Kettering Sloan, was they had 39 patients come in. 37 of them went through with the Pembro GVD into the stem cell transplant. 2 of them had stayed out or chose not to go through with the transplant. One chose to go through Pembro, the pembrolizumab, the immunotherapeutic drug. They chose to go through that single agent post the Pembro GVD and were put into, quote unquote, complete remission complete response after the 2 months or 2 cycles of the Pembro GVD. They went to Pembro single agent, so just by itself, for 12 months post, and they of the time of the journal or the clinical trial kind of results put out, that person was still in remission, but there are some nuance aspects to that, to where, again, that's one person. 2, we didn't get a whole lot of they do give information about their past treatment lines, but what happens to one person is something that is extremely difficult to give yourself enough reason to follow that, except for rare cases, but this is not a rare case. Well, for me. and then the other person just chose to, for personal reasons, they didn't go through with the stem cell transplant, and ultimately just stopped responding to the clinical trial, which again is the patient's right. They enter a clinical trial, and the amount of information they give back to whatever hospital's running it is up to them, But of the 37 that went through with the stem cell transplant, the overall survival rate and the progression-free survival rate the overall survival rate was 100%. So everybody lived post, thankfully. And then the 5-year progression-free survival rate was 92% or 95%. I just looked at it recently, but unfortunately I forgot which one of those two. There are a lot of numbers in this trial. But for the Pembro GVD consolidation, going through with the autologous stem cell transplant, a 5-year progression-free survival rate of 92 or 95% was the next highest percentage, I believe, was 67%, and that was for a combination of drugs that I've already taken as well, that didn't seem to have as much efficacy and are much. It would be a much more difficult time for me physically to go through that versus the Pembro GVD. And so with those kinds of numbers, it's one, those are profound numbers to be able to post to a journal in the first place. In the world of cancer, it's kind of difficult to get into those kinds of numbers, especially at a 5-year platform. And especially in someone's case like mine, to where you're getting into further lines of treatment. The more relapses that occur, obviously the less the likelihood of you surviving for a long time and getting rid of the cancer and going to complete remission and lifetime remission. There's another word for that, I forget. I apologize for that, but the chances of that after with the more lines of treatment that you go through, obviously that number decreases. So to have, again, 90+% progression-free survival is immense. And progression-free survival just means that through whatever time period, in this case 5 years, is progression-free, meaning that you did not progress again post whatever the treatment that was under study. So just absolutely immense, difficult to not shine a very large light upon those results. So moving forward, so with the Pembro GVD, I'll be looking at 2 cycles. The Pembro is delivered on day 1 of those cycles. So it's a 3-week cycle. Day 1 is Pembro plus the GVD, and then day 8 is another round of GVD. So not high doses in terms of amount of chemo, but day 1 and day 8, is what's going to really, if I were to be on this regimen for an extended period of time, would be pretty brutal. But hopefully it will just be 2 cycles. So, 2 doses of Pembro, 4 doses of the GVD, and then I'll have a PET scan again, and hopefully that comes back with a complete response. That would be, so this will be about, at a full 2 months worth of time, because then I'll have the PET scan, and then they're wanting to get all of these tests done that are required for the transplant. They want to get those done kind of in the week of the PET scan, which is just, it'll be a lot, but we'll figure that out. But going into the stem cell transplant, the autologous stem cell transplant. So autologous, you have autologous and allogenic. Autologous means that it is based from my body. So the stem cells will be drawn from my body, harvested from my body. It sounds, it's the most brutal part, but they'll be harvested from my body, and then I'll go into the process. So what that looks like is, so the testing will be like a pulmonary function test, an EKG, ECG. Basically, they'll take an ultrasound, and live looks, and take some shots of the different heart valves just to make sure that they're all pumping fine and acting fine. And then obviously just a plethora of blood tests, and then I'll have the stem cell harvest portion, where they will come in, or I'll go in. It's I think it's considered an outpatient outpatient kind of thing. But basically, they'll sit me down. They're going to pump me up with a bunch of kind of stem cell boosting, like production boosting medications, and then put me on a machine that is sort of like a dialysis machine, which, line coming out, they collect the stem cells, line going back in, that just redelivers that blood back into me. And they'll go on, once they achieve a certain amount, that'll be over. They stated 4 to 6 hours for that process. Won't be too bad. And then the month in the hospital begins. So it begins with 6 days in a row of chemo. And this is not a light regimen of chemo like I had in Houston. This is a chemotherapeutic regimen called BEAM, BEAM. I don't think those letters are the actual starting letters of any of those chemotherapeutic drugs, nor can I remember to name those off. They're very, very strange, very somewhat ancient chemotherapeutic drugs, but they're very heavy hitters. So chemo 6 days in a row of high dose chemo. What that does, and this is how I understand it, layman's terms, is that goes and that kills all immune cells, all white blood cells, pretty much all of your red blood cells, and it goes in and it temporarily shuts down hopefully it's temporary, but it shuts down your bone marrow. Your bone marrow is rendered unable to produce any cells until you come in and they inject you with the stem cells, in this case, my stem cells. So we are negating the opportunity for the grafts versus host disease, which is something we don't have to worry about, thankfully. And so the 6 days of chemo, 1 day off, and then day 0, they call it. Day 0 is when they inject these stem cells. And from there, I am in the hospital for 3 weeks in a private suite, top floor of the cancer building, which it was a strange, what do you call that? Amenity that my oncologist was like, hey, you can be on the top floor. And I'm like, all right, let's, I suppose that's a light that can be shed upon some darkness. So, but it'll be because I'm going to be in a situation of no contact. I'll have the opportunity to have, one person in the room with me. But that person has to stay there for a certain amount of time. So, but again, I'll have my own place for that moment, and at the end of those 3 weeks, 4 weeks in total, we hope that my body's in the situation of being able to be released from the hospital. And once I'm released, it'll be another month of no contact, zero contact with people. I get to look through them, looking through the glass. Probably won't know how much time has passed. And that'll be an interesting time. I'll be on a lot of, anti-medications, antifungal, antibacterial, and so on and so forth. And at the end of that first month, I get to, if everything's still going well, hopefully it is, I will get the opportunity to have my childhood immunization shots. Yeah. Yep. Whatever those are. Obviously, I don't remember what those are, and I need to look into that as well. But yeah, those things. So that was interesting to learn, and it's because, again, my entire immune system will be wiped out from that chemo. Every cell in that body, every cell in the body, my body, oh my, will be eliminated, destroyed, wiped out. And that including the B cells. The B cells are your memory cells of your immune system. All of those would be erased, and so they have no memory of your childhood shots, of the cold that I had 10 years ago, of the flu that I had 6 years ago. So with the removal of all of those, my body is going through a reset, big old reset. So, we'll tackle that in its somewhat, nuance, unknown sense when that time comes. But so we move on from there. It'll be probably be another month of slow integration back into engaging with the public, and hopefully about 5 to 6 months of this process, I should be back to somewhat of a normal life. What does that mean? I don't know anymore. I don't, for both voluntary and non-voluntary reasons, I don't live a normal life anymore. That's something that changed late 2021. So, how I move into this mentally is something that I've been able to incorporate the notions and the propensities of the adaptation series. I mean, the majority of those ideas all of those ideas are either something that I practice or I'm learning about, within that day or that week of recording, and hope to continue to, battle with and practice and rehearse and see how things go. I mean, but that's, I'm going through that journey actively, or previously had done so with that series. And thus why having a normal life in the voluntary side is so. I choose to find not only the most beneficial attitude and possession upon the journey that and the pathway that I intend on using, but I see these malevolent obstacles and challenges as an opportunity for me to once again promote that the strength that is within all of us, within the human psyche, the human mind, and the human body, can seemingly have impossible limits, can seemingly and deservedly battle through these challenges and obstacles with ferocity and with meaning and with poise and character, and ultimately be for something of a higher purpose. And in this case, my higher purpose is serving as many people as I can and as we can here at A Possible Performance. I not only do this for myself, I do this for you. How many ever of there are, however many yous there are, however many this message can be reached to, that's why I continuously share with those that I find myself in discussions with, which is in itself a beautiful thing of discussing how how a mindset like this can be achieved, how it can be, one, how you approach it, two, how you can organize it into an actionable plan, how you then can execute that plan, how you can look upon it from the outside looking in and from the inside itself while you are executing that plan, and how you can look back upon some of the goals that you may have achieved during that time, and what you can learn from that, and ultimately where you end up as a stronger person at the end of that, not only for yourself but for your loved ones and for your community. The obstacles that I'm facing are they have been responsible for the vast majority of my feelings of being belittlement, of being belittled, beyond me just being short. Yeah. Oh my. But yeah, they've been responsible for quite some time for these past 2.5 years for the vast majority of my feelings of being belittled, of being put on my knees. And so for this round, I've been able to somehow, mentally and emotionally, I've been able to turn the tables up here. I've been able to take that mountain, bring it down to the size of a molehill. This is no longer something that I fear. I have no fear in this game now. Leading up to this, in the present moment, and in the future, I continuously strive for learning and reading everything that I can about what I'm going to go through, what I may go through, what's possible to happen, what are some possible outcomes, side effects, reading stories of others who have gone through these types of transplants and these types of extremely intense, in this case, chemotherapeutic regimens. I have been able to pride myself to a degree in achieving some physical goals as well. I've now ran 2 half marathons. Feel pretty good overall. I'm still able to work out. Will some of those be a bit more difficult to engage in for a temporary period of time? Yes. But all that time being in a hospital bed and with little to no injury. Well, yeah, no injuries, but with little to no energy. But being in that hospital bed, having little to no energy, will be time for me to work up here and to work with some wonderful ideas that that Matt and I have for what I get to do with my time, or what I can do with my time. But also, I can find myself in situations of preparing mentally for what I can, what's upcoming physically, because I certainly still have a lot of goals for feats of running and strength post transplant. So, and that I would say is another huge thing that's going to be helping me. That is helping my psyche so far, is that I have plans for post treatment. Like this is not this is not a situation to where I need to put myself in the mindset of, oh, like, a lot of things could go wrong, which is true. A lot of things could go wrong, but I'm not putting myself in that situation of not looking beyond the transplant. I see absolutely no reason to put myself in that situation. I personally don't deserve that. Nobody deserves that. You don't why would you limit everything that you had already planned for the future? And it's unique per case. There are people in a lot worse circumstances than myself. But if you have the prospect for a determined period of time post whatever treatment you're going through, just continue to expect that to happen. You can't let yourself succumb to the pull of that tar pit, because it can get pretty deep pretty quick, and you'll feel like that you are absolutely stuck, and you can get stuck. You can get just almost in a state of paralysis if you allow yourself to succumb to the potentials of what fear can have in terms of power on you. That's not something that you need to do to yourself, or allow to be done upon yourself from those external factors. So there is a quote that I absolutely have come to love, and it's actually the background on my phone. Michel de Montaigne. Yeah, I better stop while I'm somewhat ahead, I suppose. The quote, the important part, I suppose. The quote is, "A man who fears suffering is already suffering from what he fears." A man who fears suffering is already suffering from what he fears. Kind of like the saying, don't put the cart in front of the horse. If you already carry this anxiety and anticipation for something that is in itself horrible, if you carry all that weight going into that period of time, you're going to be susceptible and will most likely succumb to that period of time with that challenge. You're going to fall into that prey mindset before you even get started. You already are. You're already in fear. A man who fears suffering is already suffering from that fear. So you have the choice going in saying, okay, I will not bow down to this. I will remain strong. I will remain stern. I will remain firm. And I will fight for however long I need to fight. Take that with you going through that obstacle and coming out on the other end. And I promise you that you'll come out, 1, a person that's learned a lot, 2, a better person, and 3, ultimately wanting to just do good for others. Particularly in my case, and the majority of cases for whatever obstacle that you're facing, there's a lot of evil and malevolence that you're facing, that I'm facing through this. Something that seems to be unrelenting. And what I have found that just through my original diagnosis and 1 relapse, and now facing a second relapse directly, is that I have this urge to try and help others in the ways, in whatever way that I can from these experiences, and to share with you what's going on, what's going through my head. So I would like to say thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. We very much intend on keeping you updated throughout this process. We have a lot of, like I said before, a lot of really cool ideas for how to, somewhat of a spoiler alert, I suppose, is we intend on taking you fairly deep into this journey with me. Somewhat in the realm of, daily updates, but also daily explorations, daily dives into how I'm actually feeling in those moments. It's going to be something fairly intense, emotionally, something that will certainly, as my world is being rocked, I hope to be able to offer maybe some insights that that can rock others' worlds. I don't know what I'm trying to get at there, but I hope that it can give people some insight into what people have to go through for these types of treatments. And so, yeah, be on the lookout for that. Should start up here again, a few months from now. So, but again, thank you for listening, and also be open and on the lookout for this month and the next month. We're getting ever so close to the Nationwide Children's Hospital Columbus Marathon. It's October 20th. We'll be, continuing to produce lots of content for that, getting in preparation for that day. And yeah, some exciting times. All is well and all shall be well. And us here at Impossible Performance, we are striving to build a culture of strength, fostering a spirit of growth in constant pursuit of the impossible. Take care, and as always, be impossible.